Minish Cap definitely is an interesting title, to me at least, just because of the fact that you can tone really small in it. And I think that was the main reason that got me interested in the game. And by that point, I really liked Ocarina of Time, so I just wanted to play another Zelda game. I was also really big into GBA emulation as a kid, if I haven't mentioned that before, and this one just so happened to be a Zelda game on that system. And don't ask me why I wasn't interested in the Link to the Past boat. Maybe it was just because, again, of the gimmick that Minish Cap had. But regardless, whenever I play Minish Cap, I always have a fun time with it, and honestly, it's just, again, one of my favorite 2D Zeldas, at least from the ones I played. But now I say it's a good time to actually get into the topic of the video. My favorite part of the game definitely has to be the sprite walk, and it definitely is one of my favorite sprite-based games on the Game Boy Advance officially. It's super colorful along with having really nice designs for the characters. It's like if they took the cartoonish visuals of Wind Waker and just applied it to the sprites, and I think they pulled that off really well. I also found the sprites to be really detailed and just really nice looking for every single sprite, like the trees, grass, and whatever else. Another aspect I loved has to be the dungeons. I think they're all really good here. Each of them have really interesting puzzles, with some of my favorites being the Cave of Flames, Wind Fortress, and the Palace of Winds. They also use like a lot of the space really well, with a lot of puzzles also having to deal with you having to float in the air just to reach a certain platform or whatever else. I also think the dungeons look really nice, and I never really got bored exploring them and getting to the end. The game might have a short list of dungeons, totaling into 6, but I think that they're fun enough to the point where I don't really care about the length. It's like Majora's Mask in that way, where I think they're all really well designed, and I don't mind that as a shorter list of dungeons. I also really enjoyed the numerous skills in the game, and was pretty glad that carried over from Twilight Princess. It helps make the fights feel a lot more interesting and fun just because of the huge amount of options you have. And in this game, it actually uses some of the items like the down thrust and the dash attack. These two, along with the beam attacks, I really enjoy using just because they're, again, really fun. And some of the skills were in other games like the Great Spin, but some others like the wall attack and again the beam attacks won't really in all that much games. I think the beam attacks were in Link to the Past, and I know Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, but honestly I feel like those ones should be in a lot more games just because they are really useful and just really fun to use. Another side to the game that I love has to be the characters, whether it's a side one or a main character. I feel they're all really lively and are just really funny, and I just really like interacting with them. So in a way, it's also like Wind Waker in that aspect, which again, they still do land it here. I really enjoyed Elzo Milera, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that, and basically all the people from the Pokoi clan along with the newest people from Hyrule Castle. I also found Vaati to be a somewhat cool villain. I just wish he had more scenes. Also, on the other hand, he is probably one of my favorite sidekicks just because, again, he's just really funny and I really did like his backstory with Vaati. Now let's move on to the dislikes, and one of them definitely has to be the keystones. I don't like how weird it made the exploration, and you also need to grind for them. And for the exploration part, you basically need to find a certain NPC, and you gotta pray that you actually have the keystone that they have, or else again, you have to go grind. And grinding in a Zelda game, I find to be pretty stupid. And certain keystones also need to be used to finish certain side quests. Like I believe you need to get certain ones to complete the tunnel that the Golems are punching. And again, unless you grind, there was almost no way that you would finish that, and I just find that really stupid. I also think that there's no real good way to get a certain keystone unless a chest can provide that keystone, but again, I'm not exactly sure. But another thing I really didn't really like has to be the progression being really confusing at times for like no reason. I think the worst parts have to be the swamp and getting to the Temple of Droplets, because for those ones, you have to do some pretty dumb stuff. For the swamp, you actually have to go there physically first and then do a whole side quest about waking up a shoemaker to get the Pegasus boots. And trust me, you actually have to go there because without it, the cutscene won't play and you will not get the side quest for the shoemaker. And for the Droplet Temple, you have to talk to some random Pokoi who has never been referenced before, at least I think so. And it's just, again, a whole mess where you have to get some books back to the library in the Hyrule City, and again, I found that whole thing just to be super annoying. This next dislike is going to be exactly like one of my dislikes on my Twilight Princess video, and that's how skills are integrated. Well, I still do think they're really cool to see and use. It's just that again, no enemies really take advantage of them, and again, you don't really need to use them. I don't like how they're optional just because, you know, no enemies can actually take advantage of that, and it just doesn't really give the gameplay all that much depth. I felt the only really useful skill was the Rock Breaker, since it lets you break pots and rocks with your sword, but again, I felt that should have just been a part of Link's moveset and not an additional skills. And honestly, it's just, again, they're really cool to use, but they don't really offer up much else other than just being cool moves to use. And that's basically what I had liked and disliked about the game, and overall I still think it's pretty fun. The dungeons are again my favorite part just because I felt like the devs actually made them interesting with the layout and how you progress through them. This might be the only 2D Zelda I put the most time in, but still overall it's a solid entry with some raw spots here and there. But what did you guys like about Minish Cap? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, before we finish the video, let's go over the likes and dislikes. Likes: great looking sprites, fun and interesting dungeons, scales can make combat more fun, and nice side and main characters. Dislikes: how keystones work, the progression is confusing, and skills don't add much depth. Thank you all for watching and see you guys later.